Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Java Workshop Part 1. We are planning to have a Part 2 later, so stay tuned for that. So we're just going to start off by talking a bit about coding languages. So as many of you know, coding can be accomplished in many different languages. So as seen in the chart, there's like an entire spectrum of languages. So I'd say Java is somewhat in the middle. It's basically a mix of C and Python. And Java also does have its advantages. It can be used for web and app development. And in this workshop, we're just going to start with a nice and slow introduction to Java and get some examples along the way. So our first topic is going to be IDE. So what is an IDE? So an IDE by definition stands for Integrated Development Environment. But just to put it simply, it's a place where you can code and create. And today you guys are going to see some examples on an IDE, and we'll talk a bit more about that next. So here are some examples of some good Java IDEs. So we have IntelliJ on the left, NetBeans in the middle, and Eclipse on the right. So today's examples are going to be done on NetBeans, and I like NetBeans a lot because it's not like too complicated, but it also has enough features so you can do like most programming. And I also use NetBeans at school for my computer science class. So yeah, today we're just gonna start off with NetBeans. All right, now we'll get into some basic syntax for Java. So here's just a list of like the syntax we're gonna look at today. So first we have main and class setup. Then we have print lines, variables, scanners, and then if and while loops. All right, so main and class setups. So if I'm being completely honest, class and main aren't too important to know. It's just something you need in order to start your code. So I'll just break it down really quick with my pointer. The top part is just a comment. So the way you comment is have 2 slashes and then just write text, like you can comment just like normal English. Then below that, we'll have our first important part, which is public class. So what you want to do, and we'll look at this in the example, so don't worry about it too much. You will see like a real example, is public class and then the name of your file, which in this case, as you can see, is workshop. Then you want to have like a bracket. So this entire portion is part of the class. And then within the class, we have main. So public static void main, and then in brackets string, and then args, which stands for arguments. And then you also want to just have brackets around that as well. So we will get more into this, so don't worry about it too much. Just one thing I wanted to mention is something I like to do, and a lot of programmers do, is comment out the end of each of class and main. So as you can see, this is the bracket that's associated with main at the end. You just want to write end main. And then here it's for class, so end class. And this is really important because as you like get into more complex programming, it becomes a lot harder to keep track of all of the code you've written for like different sections. So it's really good to like comment as much as you can to keep everything organized. Okay, so we'll just break down class. So public class workshop, which was the name of the file, bracket, bracket, and then end class. And then for main, public static void main, string, these 2 square brackets, and then args, which again stands for arguments, and then again, close brackets and main. So just one thing to keep in mind is that class always comes above main. So make sure you don't mix those 2 up. And as you do more and more programming, especially in Java, you'll get used to it. And over time, it just becomes second nature. And just an overview again, name of the file, class over main, and all your code, at least for like today's examples, will go into the main. All right, now we'll get into some print lines. So print lines is a way to have your code shown at the bottom and like the output. So for example, if we look at the very first lines, system.out.print, hi, welcome to this workshop, and we end with a semicolon. So what this is going to do is in the output, it's just going to print hi, comma, welcome to the workshop. Now, as you can see, there's a few differences between this top 2 and the bottom 2 lines. And the main difference is the ln after the print. So as you can see at the top, there is no ln after print, and at the bottom there is. So what this does is usually in code, you're going to have multiple print lines. So if you have an ln, what it's going to do is automatically take the next line and put it in the bottom. Versus if you don't have ln, it's just going to keep on printing on the same line. And we'll see that in our example as well. So just a way to see this. So if we print hello, welcome to the workshop twice, if we don't have ln, it's just going to stay on the same line. So it's going to say hello, welcome to the workshop, and then on the same line again, hello, welcome to the workshop. But if we write print ln in our function, it's going to split it up into two separate lines. So we'll quickly get into our first example, and this should help break down everything we've just quickly covered so far. So I'll just open up my file. So this is what NetBeans looks like, and this is what I'm just going to quickly do a few examples on. So this top part you can ignore, it's just sort of automatically shows up with NetBeans whenever you open a file. So when you create a new file, it automatically gives you the public class. So public class and then the file name, which is hello world 2. So now, as you guys know, we need to do the main function. So public static void main, and then we want string, square brackets, space args, and then we want to just close that off. And really quickly, just at the start, I'm just going to get the commenting over with. So we have end main and end class. All right. So this example is just going to quickly demonstrate how the print lines work. So I'm just going to do 5 system.out.print functions. So system.out.print. And this time I'm not going to include an ln. It's just going to be normal. So that's one line. And we're going to do system.out.print. This time I'm just going to do an ln for the sake of the next part. Welcome. And I'm just going to leave a blank system.out.println here just so it leaves a space between the two sort of separate examples between no ln and ln. All right. So now just in your mind with what we've learned, just quickly for like a quick 5 seconds, just think about what the output would look like with these lines of code. So keep in mind with ln, it's going to have a space at the bottom, and without ln, there's not going to be a space. It's not going to move on to the next line. And I'll just quickly run the file just so you guys can see. Method. Oh, whoops, save. Okay, so here we go. I'll just quickly lower it a bit. So I hope you guys can all see that clearly. So we'll just break it down bit by bit and then we'll move on. So if we go to, sorry, let me just run this again. All right, if we see this very first system.out.println line, which says hello world, or sorry, system.out.print hello world, it prints clearly on the output right here. And then if we look at the second line, system.out.println welcome to the workshop, as you can see, since there was no ln in the initial hello world line, it stayed on the exact same line with it didn't move down one. So it looks sort of awkward. So what I'd suggest is usually when you guys code, I typically use the .ln line because it's just a lot cleaner looking. So if we after the space, if we look at it, hello world with the ln and then welcome to the workshop again with the ln, it sort of splits up into two separate statements instead of sticking together on the same line. So yeah, that's a pretty basic, super basic example. And that was just covering class, main, and print lines. So now we will go back, just quickly move on. All right. All right, variable types. So there's a lot of variables in Java, and this is definitely not all of them, but these are the ones we're going to focus on today since they are the most basic and typically most used. So first we have int, which is just a whole numbers. So int stands for integer, which is, of course, you'd set it as like a number. So an example of an int would be like int, and then the variable name comes afterwards. So the variable name in this case is number. So int number equals -5 semicolon. So what variables do is you set values to them, and then you can work in variables into your code to do something, as you'll see in the next example with the game we're going to build. But just remember that int focuses on whole numbers. Then we have double, which is also classified as with numbers, but in this case, it can also have decimals. So double variable name number is equal to 2.32, for example. Then we have strings, which is text. So unlike system.out.println, where we just print the words onto the output, what we're doing in this case is we're like keeping a word in like a storage bank. And then when we need the word to be printed, we can code that in. So string, the variable name word is equal to, for example, Canada. And one thing you want to remember when you're doing a string is that you need quotations around the variable, unlike integers or Booleans, as we're going to see. So Booleans are true or false statements, and typically these are used in while loops, as we're going to see after a while. So what you'd set a Boolean to is either true or false. So Boolean variable name run is equal to false, or it could be equal to true, but that's it. Versus when like a string, double, or integer can be set to almost anything you want, whether it's like a number, a whole number, decimal, or just a string of words. Okay,